if Eala, can keep doing well with her tennis, who knows? The sky's the limit on the court, off the court.
Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now in the world?
And then we have a big challenger.
Is she currently the biggest draw in women's tennis worldwide? We now have a significant challenger emerging as the Linz Open draw was released this week. Eala's participation was confirmed for April 6th, and within hours, a tennis expert had seen more than enough to make a bold prediction. This insight came not after the chaos, but well before it, because Melbourne had already written this script back in January. Eala's army of 2 million Filipino supporters effectively shut down the Australian Open's Court 6. Despite the venue having fewer than 1,500 seats, queues stretched toward Rod Laver Arena, and hundreds of fans were physically turned away before the first point was even played.
I mean, you get nervous here and there when it's going, I don't want to say easy, but when the score is in your favor, it's like you have to be cautious, so a little bit nervous, but obviously I'm super happy to be here in quarters.
Coco Gauff described Alex Eala as the player who would outsell every name on tour if tennis adopted a jersey-based model. The WTA even established the Philippines' first professional tournament because of her, where the final sold out before she even confirmed her entry. At Indian Wells, her practice sessions drew crowds and journalists who compared the atmosphere directly to that of Carlos Alcaraz. During her quarterfinal run in Dubai, every match was sold out. Now, an expert has analyzed the Linz Open's 2,500-seat design center against the documented demand at this scale and called it what it is: functionally, a 1,000-seat court. It is the same pattern in a different country, and there is zero excuse for repeating the same mistake. This channel identifies these issues before they happen, and here is the full argument. The argument begins with a single question the expert posed to anyone willing to engage. At what point does a tournament's failure to prepare become a deliberate choice? Melbourne was forgivable as a first-time miscalculation. One could look at the chaos of January's Australian Open and conclude that no scheduling committee genuinely anticipated the impact Eala's fan base would generate on match day. With queues stretching toward Rod Laver Arena and fans watching on outdoor screens, organizers could credibly claim they were caught off guard. However, that excuse has now expired. Every tournament since Melbourne has been presented with the same evidence in real time. Yet, the Linz Open is approaching April 6th with a 2,500-seat venue, despite documented demand that shut down a significantly larger Australian Open court just 10 weeks ago. This is the core of the expert's position. It is not outrage or hyperbole, but a straightforward observation that the information needed to make a better decision has been publicly available for months. Yet Linz has chosen to proceed as though it does not exist. To understand why this criticism is valid, the Melbourne situation requires full context. Court 6 at the Australian Open is not a minor outer court. It seats just under 1,500 spectators and is a mid-tier venue within Melbourne Park's infrastructure. For most players at Eala's ranking at the time, world number 49 Court 6 would be a reasonable assignment. The scheduling committee looked at a player ranked outside the top 40, making her first Australian Open main draw appearance, and made what they assumed was a proportionate call. What they failed to calculate was the Filipino diaspora. There are over 10 million Filipinos living outside the Philippines, and Melbourne has one of the most concentrated Filipino communities in the Southern Hemisphere. When Eala's name appeared in the draw, word spread through every WhatsApp group, Facebook page, and community network in the city. Fans arrived hours before match time, and queues stretched back toward the main stadium before a single ball was struck. Hundreds were physically turned away at the entrance. Those who could not get in watched on outdoor big screens, creating a viewing atmosphere outside the court that rivaled the one inside. Journalist Jose Morgado observed the situation and wrote, "Without qualification, putting Eala on Court 6 is just dumb." That is a direct quote from a professional tennis journalist, not a social media comment or a fan complaint. A credentialed media professional saw the evidence and called the scheduling decision exactly what it was. Novak Djokovic was more diplomatic, but his framing was still a concession. He acknowledged that scheduling Eala on a bigger court would have been the correct call, while describing the overflow as a good problem to have. When a 2-4-time Grand Slam champion uses diplomatic language to essentially agree that something went wrong, the scheduling committee cannot claim vindication. Former Philippine national team coach Carl Santamaria was watching from inside the stadium among the fans. His assessment was unambiguous. The crowd that showed up for Eala could have filled Manila's KIA Arena, a 5,000-seat indoor venue, and possibly exceeded it. Eala's own aunt, who traveled specifically for the match, could not even get in. Eala's opponent, Alicia Parks, admitted after the match that she was rattled by the atmosphere in the first set, describing an environment that resembled football more than tennis. Parks lost that first set 0-6 before recovering. Her words confirmed that the crowd conditions created by an undersized venue directly affected the competitive outcome of the match. This matters beyond logistics. The venue decision influenced the play on the court. If Melbourne were an isolated incident, the criticism of Linz would carry less weight. However, the months between January and April 2026 have produced a continuous stream of evidence that Eala's draw is categorically different from any other unseeded player in women's tennis. Dubai followed in February. Eala entered the Dubai Tennis Championships and proceeded to sell out every match she played during her quarterfinal run. This was not just for the later rounds, it was every match. A tournament that had hosted elite players for years suddenly found its stadium consistently full, driven entirely by Filipino fans based in the UAE, where approximately 1 million overseas Filipino workers currently reside. Coco Gauff played in the Dubai quarterfinals and remarked afterward that seeing the stadium at full capacity in a tournament she had attended for years was genuinely meaningful. That is a top 5 player acknowledging that someone ranked outside the top 30 was impacting tournament attendance in a way she had never seen before. Then came Indian Wells in March. Eala's practice sessions at the BNP Paribas Open drew crowds that journalists specifically compared to those following Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Venus Williams. Her draw was not just comparable to other WTA players, it was comparable to the top draws in men's tennis and the most iconic names the sport has ever produced. Tournament executive Philippe Dor said directly, "We love every minute of it. We benefit from it. We promote it." The tournament posted a day-in-the-life video featuring Eala that accumulated 94,000 YouTube views, the most watched content of their entire 2026 tournament by a significant margin. Gauff herself, when asked which player would top jersey sales if tennis adopted that model, gave a one-name answer: Alex. She added that Eala would probably be number 1. World number 17, Eva Liss, one of Eala's closest friends on tour, was asked the same question and gave the same answer without hesitation, noting how many Filipinos show up and calling it great. This is not speculative fan base analysis. These are the top players on the WTA Tour independently confirming that Eala's support operates on a scale different from everything around her. The WTA itself confirmed this by creating the Philippine Women's Open, a brand new 1-5 level tournament built specifically because Eala's rise made it commercially viable. The final sold out before she even confirmed her participation. Tickets were gone for a match she had not yet agreed to play. The Design Center in Linz is a legitimate professional venue. Since the tournament returned there in 2023, it has hosted WTA 500 level tennis with a main show court adapted from a configurable indoor exhibition hall seating approximately 2,500 spectators. Past champions at this venue include names like Coco Gauff, Aryna Sabalenka, and Jelena Ostapenko. It is a quality facility by WTA 500 standards. The problem is not the venue relative to WTA 500 norms. The problem is that Eala does not operate within those norms regarding crowd demand. Linz is in Austria, a country with no significant Filipino community infrastructure. The fans who travel for Eala at this tournament will largely be Filipinos based in Germany, Switzerland, and other parts of Central Europe. This diaspora is smaller in absolute numbers than those in Melbourne or Dubai, but they are demonstrably motivated enough to travel across borders for a first-round match. The same fans who flew from Manila to Melbourne for a round 1 fixture against a player ranked 99th in the world will not be deterred by a flight from Munich to Linz. Against documented demand at this scale, 2,500 seats function exactly as the expert framed it, as a 1,000-seat court. Demand does not scale with venue size. When a fan base is mobilized, a 2,500-seat venue fills the same way a 1,500-seat venue fills, meaning the overspill, the turned-away fans, and the external chaos happen at roughly the same threshold. The number on the capacity sign means very little when the incoming demand is measured in the tens of thousands of people globally tracking where she plays next. The expert's specific frustration is that this is not a projection. It is a pattern that has repeated itself with enough consistency across different countries and venues that continuing to treat it as unpredictable is intellectually dishonest. Melbourne, Dubai, Indian Wells, and Manila provide 4 consecutive environments where the same dynamic played out. Linz now has 4 data points to work with heading into April 6th, yet the draw still confirmed her entry without any publicly stated accommodation for the demand she generates. There is a separate layer to this situation that makes the venue issue more consequential than it would be for a typical player. Cruising through a comfortable part of her season, Eala arrives at Linz facing a ranking problem. After her 4th-round exit at the 2026 Miami Open, a 0-6, 2-6 loss to Karolina Muchova, Eala is set to drop from world number 29 to approximately 45th. She is losing 270 ranking points she accumulated from last year's Miami semifinal run, which she could not defend. This is her first clay court tournament of 2026, a surface she openly acknowledges still requires significant development. Her 2025 clay record across 4 tournaments was 2 wins and 4 losses, including first-round exits at both the Italian Open and the French Open. Linz is therefore not a comfortable warm-up event. It is a ranking rescue mission. According to calculations already published by multiple outlets, Eala needs at minimum a semifinal finish at Linz to have any realistic chance of re-entering the top 30 before Madrid. A quarterfinal exit would leave her in the 34th to 36th ranking range, which is likely insufficient for a seed at the Madrid Open, her next scheduled stop starting April 21st. She is entering unseeded and facing a draw that includes defending champion Ekaterina Alexandrova at number 11, Clara Tauson at number 17, Ludmila Samsonova at number 19, and Emma Raducanu alongside Jelena Ostapenko. For a player whose clay court game Brad Gilbert recently identified as requiring dramatic improvement specifically regarding her serve percentage and first serve points won, this is a genuinely difficult week on a surface she has not yet mastered. The question the expert is raising is whether Eala should be competing with any avoidable external pressure piled on top of an already challenging competitive situation. Melbourne demonstrated that an undersized venue creates a noise environment that disrupts the match itself, as Parks noted directly. If Linz repeats that scenario in an event where Eala genuinely needs results, the venue decision stops being a logistical inconvenience and starts being something that affects a 20-year-old's professional career at a critical moment in her development. Eala herself, speaking after Miami, said she was genuinely excited about the clay season despite acknowledging it as her weakest surface. She added, "I could win the whole thing or lose the first match. If I don't get the win here, I'll get it somewhere else." That is the competitive mindset of someone who has internalized pressure well. What she should not have to internalize is the administrative failure of a tournament that had 3 months' notice and 4 documented precedents to work with. Andy Roddick called the Eala effect, the type of story you cheer for because it is great for tennis. That is accurate, and the sentiment is genuine. However, cheering for a story while allowing the infrastructure around it to remain inadequate is a comfortable position that does not actually serve the player at its center. Every tournament that benefits commercially from Eala's draw, and they all do, from increased ticket demand to viral content reaching new audiences, has a corresponding obligation to ensure her competitive environment is properly managed. The expert's point, stripped down to its essential form, is this: the Linz Open is about to receive a level of fan demand it was not designed for. It has been given every piece of information required to prepare for that demand, and the current arrangement suggests it has not treated that information as a priority. When the queues form outside the design center on April 6th, the surprise will not be genuine. It will be a choice made in advance, dressed up as an oversight after the fact. That is worth saying before it happens rather than after, because after Melbourne, Dubai, Indian Wells, and a WTA tournament in Manila that sold out its final before the headliner confirmed attendance, "we didn't know," is no longer a sentence. Anyone in professional tennis scheduling gets to finish. That is the full argument. Drop your thoughts in the comments on whether you think Linz is genuinely unprepared or whether the expert is overstating the case. If this kind of coverage before the headlines form is what you are here for, subscribe and hit the notification bell so the next update reaches you the moment it goes up. See you on the other side of April 6th.